space giant in its quest to fly NASA astronauts to and from orbit. Unfortunately, the flight was not perfect. Have a few doubts, and we may not even know the answer. Why is that? And how did Elon Musk react to this? How does this Boeing success relate to Elon Musk's SpaceX? And what did Roscosmos head Dmitry Rogozin say about this spacecraft? Let's find out everything about this interesting subject in today's episode. Boeing CST-100 Starliner spacecraft successfully docked with the International Space Station on May 20th, a little more than 24 hours after its launch. The spacecraft docked with the forward docking port on the Harmony module of the station at 8:28 p.m. Eastern. Controllers reported a hard docking securing the spacecraft to the station about 20 minutes later, although hatches separating the spacecraft from the station won't open until around 11:45 a.m. Eastern on May 21st. The docking took place more than an hour later than the original schedule as controllers worked through several minor issues. That included the spacecraft's docking ring, which needed to be retracted and extended again before the spacecraft could make final approach. To the joint Boeing and NASA team, the crew of Expedition 67 would like to offer our congratulations on this momentous occasion, NASA astronaut Bob Hines, currently on the station, said after the docking was confirmed. Today marks a great milestone towards providing additional commercial access to low Earth orbit, sustaining the ISS, and enabling NASA's goal of returning humans to the Moon and eventually to Mars. This was a really critical demonstration mission, Kathy Luters, NASA Associate Administrator for Space Operations, said in a briefing about an hour after the docking. Seeing that vehicle dock now to the ISS is just phenomenal. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk also sent his congratulations to NASA and Boeing Space. Indeed, there are still many concerns about the Starliner flight. Neither NASA nor Boeing provided updates about the status of the Orbital Test Flight (OFT-2) mission for more than 17 hours after a post-launch briefing on May 19th, an unusual silence that raised concerns that there was a problem with the spacecraft. A Boeing spokesperson said the company would provide an update about the mission in a bit, but the company did not release that update until more than 3 hours later. In that update, Boeing confirmed that the spacecraft was generally in good condition, having conducted several tests as planned. One issue was the off-nominal behavior of the thermal cooling loop on the spacecraft, but the company said the system was still maintaining stable temperatures. The ground team did a great job of managing those loops, said Steve Stitch, NASA Commercial Crew Program Manager, at the post-docking briefing. He said some moisture may have gotten into the coolant loops that froze out and clogged a filter, causing pressure rise in the loop. Controllers were able to manage the temperature of those coolant loops, and there was plenty of margin in the system. The other issue was the failure of 2 of 12 aft-facing orbital maneuvering and attitude control, or OMAC thrusters, during the spacecraft's orbit insertion burn shortly after launch. In the statement, Boeing said a drop in chamber pressure likely caused the thrusters to shut down. Mark Nappy, Boeing Vice President and Commercial Crew Program Manager, said engineers developed a fault-free and identified 3 or so plausible causes, which he did not identify, later suggesting the 2 thrusters may have failed for different reasons. We may never know what the real cause of what this is because we don't get this vehicle back, he said. The thrusters are located in the service module, which is jettisoned before re-entry and burns up in the atmosphere. Other OMAC thrusters continued to work well, performing several maneuvers as the spacecraft approached the station before smaller reaction control system RSC thrusters took over for the final approach. The OMAC thrusters will not be used again until the spacecraft deorbit burn at the end of the mission. In addition to the 2 OMAC thruster failures, 2 RCS thrusters also shut down during approach to the station after suffering a drop in chamber pressure. I don't think we know quite yet what happened to those thrusters, but the vehicle has plenty of redundancy, Stitch said, including for undocking and landing. This certainly makes us worry about the safety of future flights. Everything seems to be temporary. Recall earlier that head of Roscosmos, Dmitry Rogozin, called Starliner unreliable, declaring that the Russian cosmonauts will not fly on it. He said now they will try to launch it, but we definitely won't put any of our astronauts on it. We can't risk their lives. Anyway, we can't deny this is still a big success for both Boeing and NASA. I can't imagine what would happen if they failed this time. Completing the flight is the only option for Boeing, or Starliner will die. You know, NASA has sunk over $4 billion into Starliner via its Commercial Crew program. It's one of 2 commercial vehicles the agency chose to eventually shuttle astronauts to the ISS. The other was SpaceX's Crew Dragon, which has already sent 4 batches of astronauts to the space station. Aside from the big chunk of taxpayer dollars already invested in the spacecraft, it's in NASA's interest for Boeing to succeed for another reason. To be fair, even if Boeing is now more than 3 years behind SpaceX, whose Crew Dragon spacecraft first reached orbit and the ISS in March of 2019 and launched its first astronauts in May 2020, it's essential that NASA has 2 redundant crew vehicles available to carry astronauts to and from the station. SpaceX's extraordinary success and heroic efforts have allowed the company to single-handedly ensure NASA access to the ISS since November of 2020. But no complex system is perfect, and even a failure outside of SpaceX's control could trigger a long delay that could threaten NASA's uninterrupted presence on the International Space Station. In addition, NASA safety advisors said a few days ago that there's obvious safety concerns about SpaceX's Dragon. Officials said last year that SpaceX would end production of New Dragon capsules after building 4 human-rated vehicles. The 4th and newest member of the fleet launched for the first time last month. Each Dragon spacecraft is designed for at least 5 flights, and SpaceX and NASA could certify the capsule for additional missions. David West, a member of the Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel, said in a May 12th public meeting that we are definitely concerned about whether requirements for transporting astronauts to and from the ISS through its remaining life, whatever that is, can be met without any additional Dragons. Once Starliner is operational, NASA wants to alternate crew rotations every 6 months between Boeing and SpaceX, giving each provider 1 NASA astronaut flight per year. More importantly, Russia's space agency Roscosmos is strained at the moment following Russia's invasion of the Ukraine and the international sanctions against Russia. Roscosmos head Dmitry Rogozin has made bizarre threats alluding to blocking cooperation on the ISS and even sending it into an uncontrolled deorbit and fall into the United States or Europe. So it would be clearly necessary for NASA to have 2 U.S.-based companies for its astronauts to hitch rides with. Hope everything goes well for Starliner from now. And that just about wraps it up for today's episode. Don't forget to share your ideas about today's episode in the comments section. Everyone's support is a motivation for us to create more quality content. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.